The Galactic Council had grown used to silence from the dark corners of the Orion arm-hole. Regions of space lay uncharted, abandoned for centuries, too costly or too dangerous to claim. Civilizations rose and fell, but one thing was certain: humanity, long ago, had disappeared beyond the Council's reach. Some whispered they had destroyed themselves, others believed they had scattered across the void. And then there were the myths, tales of humans who survived in secret colonies, waiting for the day they would rise again. But those were only stories. Or so everyone believed. On the edge of Council space, deep within the Red Mist Nebula, a patrol fleet picked up something unusual. A faint signature, unlike any ship design in the archives, was moving with deliberate speed. Captain Vera of the Sarah T patrol cruiser frowned as she studied the strange readings. "It can't be a civilian vessel," she muttered. The drive signature was old, archaic, yet powerful. Her sensors officer shifted nervously. "It looks human." The bridge went silent. No one said the word human lightly. Humanity was a legend, an ancient danger, a species the archives warned about but never fully explained. Their history had been erased, their colonies vanished. To the Council, they were a warning carved into memory. Do not provoke them. Do not seek them. And yet, the signal grew stronger. The ship that emerged from the nebula was massive, scarred, but unmistakably alive. Its hull was blackened by centuries of wear, but its engines burned with terrifying force. Behind it, more vessels followed. Dozens, maybe hundreds. A fleet. Not drifting ruins. Not relics. Functioning warships, bearing markings no one had seen in 10,000 years. The crest of Earth. Captain Vera felt her throat tighten. This is impossible. The humans did not open communications. They did not explain themselves. Their ships moved in perfect formation, precise, disciplined, like a blade ready to strike. The Council's patrol ships sent hails, warnings, even threats. None were answered. Then the first strike came. It was not a warning shot. It was not a display of power. A single human vessel, larger than any Sarah T dreadnought, fired once, and erased a Council battleship in a burst of white light. No shields, no armor, no defense mattered. The Council's fleet panicked, scattering in every direction. Captain Vera's cruiser trembled under the shockwave as she watched entire squadrons vanish in seconds. The humans advanced without hesitation. Their silence was worse than any declaration of war. Whispers began to spread across the galaxy within hours. The Council tried to contain the news, but fleets talked, survivors screamed their warnings. A name was spoken in fear once more: humanity had returned. And they were not weak. They were not broken. They were an empire reborn from exile. Back on the Council's core worlds, debates erupted. Some argued the humans had a right to reclaim forgotten space. Others feared they would not stop there. Old archives were reopened, dusty records studied again. What had humanity once done that frightened the galaxy so deeply? Why had they been buried in myth instead of history? The humans gave no answers. They expanded, system by system, burning through defenses like fire through dry leaves. No parley, no negotiation, no mercy. Colonies surrendered without a fight, hoping for survival. But to everyone's shock, the humans did not enslave or slaughter. They took control with frightening order, rebuilding infrastructure, replacing governors with their own, demanding loyalty but offering protection. It was not random conquest. It was the return of an empire that had been waiting for millennia. On a mining colony near the rim, an old scholar whispered words that chilled his students. They are not conquering. They are reclaiming. This was theirs before we were even born. And so the galaxy watched as the myth of humanity became reality again. No one knew their true strength. No one knew their true purpose. But one thing was certain: a lost human colony had returned, and the stars themselves trembled as they began their conquest. The Council called for reinforcements. Fleets rallied, war plans were drawn. Yet deep in their hearts, every commander, every soldier, every politician feared the same truth. If humanity had survived in silence for all these centuries, what horrors had they built in the dark? The council's high chamber was in chaos. Holograms of burning outposts and collapsing fleets filled the air. Every report came with the same words: the humans have returned. For centuries, the council had ruled without challenge. Their fleets were vast, their laws unquestioned, their unity fragile but maintained by fear of their combined strength. Now, in a matter of days, a single lost human colony had shattered that illusion. The Speaker of the Council, a towering insectoid named Chirix, slammed his claw against the central dais. "We must send everything we have. If they are not stopped now, the humans will spread like wildfire." But others hesitated. The elder Thalorian delegate, her voice calm but trembling, shook her head. "You do not understand. The records are incomplete, but the warnings are clear. They were not like us. They were not meant to be contained. The more you push them, the stronger they become." Her words sent a ripple of unease through the chamber. Even without full history, fragments remained, tales of human adaptability, human wars that burned entire sectors, human soldiers who fought until their last breath. But the truth of their disappearance had never been explained. Were they destroyed in some great catastrophe? Or had they left by choice? The chamber argued for hours, but the decision came with fear, not wisdom. They would test the humans' strength. A combined fleet of 600 ships, drawn from 7 council races, was ordered to intercept the human forces in the Zera system. The Zera system was rich in resources and sat at the edge of the humans' sudden expansion. If they wanted to claim it, they would have to face the full might of the council. When the humans arrived, they did not hesitate. Their fleet dropped from slipspace in a perfect wall of steel and fire. Dozens of massive capital ships, escorted by sleek destroyers and smaller strike craft. Their formation was flawless, almost mechanical, as if they had practiced this for centuries in secret. Admiral Kether of the Council's fleet gave the order. "All ships, fire at will." The void lit up with thousands of plasma bolts, missile trails, and energy beams. The Zera system became a storm of war. But the human fleet moved like no enemy they had ever faced. Their ships did not scatter. They did not panic. They advanced in silence, shields flaring, armor glowing under the assault. Then they struck back. One human dreadnought unleashed a weapon unlike anything in the Council's arsenal. A beam of white energy tore through 3 cruisers in a single shot, leaving nothing but vaporized debris. Another human vessel launched missiles that did not miss. They twisted, bent, and hunted their targets with impossible precision, tearing through shields and armor alike. Council ships fell by the dozens. Formations broke. Panic spread. Admiral Kether's voice rose over the comms, demanding discipline, but his words were drowned in screams and static as ship after ship was erased. The humans pressed forward, relentless. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Every move, every strike, showed they had prepared for this moment. Their weapons were advanced, but more terrifying was their strategy. They anticipated every counter, every maneuver, as if they had studied their enemies for centuries. Within hours, the Council fleet was broken. Of 600 ships, barely 100 limped away. The humans did not pursue. They let them run, carrying with them a single, chilling message: "We are back." In the aftermath, fear spread faster than truth. Rumors grew wilder with every retelling. Some claimed the humans had entire planets turned into shipyards hidden in the void. Others swore they had weapons capable of breaking stars. What mattered was not what was true, but what everyone believed: humanity could not be stopped. Back in the human fleet, aboard their flagship Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno stared at the tactical displays. Her officers spoke in clipped, efficient tones, reporting system after system falling under their control. She remained silent, her eyes hard. For her, this was not conquest. This was return. "Prepare the next phase," she said coldly. "The Council will rally. Let them. We are only beginning." The bridge officers nodded. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They only obeyed. For the galaxy, it was a nightmare come alive. For humanity, it was destiny fulfilled. And in the silence between stars, a single truth echoed across every world, every colony, every frightened heart. The lost humans were no longer lost. They had come back, and they were taking everything. The galaxy was burning with questions. Why now? Why here? And what had kept humanity silent for so long? The council demanded answers, but the humans gave none. They conquered with frightening precision, each system falling into their hands like dominoes. No explanations, no broadcasts, no attempt at diplomacy. Just silence and control. The galaxy could only guess. But far from the eyes of the council, in the heart of the human fleet, the truth was known. On the flagship Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno stood before the Great Wall of Memory. Thousands of names were etched into glowing lines, stretching from floor to ceiling. Each name was a life lost in exile, a reminder of why they had returned. A young officer approached, hesitant. "Admiral, permission to ask?" Juno turned, her expression sharp but not unkind. "Speak. Why do we not tell them? Why keep our silence when the galaxy trembles before us?" The Admiral looked back at the wall of names, her voice low. "Because they would never believe us. And because the truth is not for them. It is for us." Centuries ago, when the Council was still young, humans had fought their wars. They had risen too fast, too strong, spreading to the stars with speed no other species could match. The Council saw them not as partners, but as a threat. Records, buried deep and forgotten, spoke of a great betrayal. A coalition of alien fleets had struck humanity's heart, burning their colonies, driving survivors into exile. But humanity did not die. They fled beyond the stars, into the void where no one dared follow. There, in the cold dark, they rebuilt. Not in peace but in hardship. Every day was a battle for survival. They fought hunger, plague, endless cold, and each other. But through it all, one thing united them, the memory of what had been taken. Generations were born under the oath, "We will return." And now, at last, they had. The officer listened in silence, her face pale as the truth sank in. Admiral Juno's eyes hardened. "We were not lost by accident. We were cast out. Forgotten. Left to die. And now we will carve our place in the stars again. Not as beggars. Not as victims. But as rulers." Meanwhile, in the Council's heartworlds, panic deepened. Refugees poured in from frontier systems, speaking of human fleets that arrived like storms. Yet the strangest reports unsettled the Council most of all. The humans were not destroying everything. They were rebuilding. Systems under their control were reorganized, defended, supplied. Trade routes reopened, but under human banners. Factories that had fallen silent for centuries roared back to life, now producing weapons and ships for their fleet. To many desperate colonies, the humans did not appear as conquerors. They looked like saviors. Council leaders raged at this. "They are stealing loyalty from us," one shouted. But beneath the fury was fear. Fear that the people might choose humanity willingly. And in the shadows of the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Smugglers, mercenaries, even entire colonies began to defect. "Better a human master than a council tyrant," they said. The humans had not just returned with firepower. They had returned with purpose. The council finally realized they faced not just a fleet, but a civilization reborn in exile. And worse, humanity had prepared for this. Every weapon, every strategy, every step showed years of planning. The council was reacting, but the humans were executing a plan written generations ago. Back aboard Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno stood before her officers. The fleet had gathered after the victory in Zera, their banners glowing in the dark void. Juno's voice carried across the command hall. "We were forgotten. Now, they will remember." Her officers struck their fists to their chests in silent salute. Outside, the human fleet moved once more. Their next target was already chosen. Their next strike already planned. The galaxy had asked why humanity vanished. Now, they would learn why they had returned. And the answer would not be words. It would be conquest. The Council could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had returned not as scattered survivors, but as a force of terrifying unity. Star systems were falling one by one, and every failed counterstrike made the humans stronger. Fear spread faster than their fleets. In the grand chamber of the Council, the mood was grim. Delegates from dozens of species shouted over one another, some demanding surrender, others calling for extermination. Finally, silence fell as a massive holomap flickered to life. It showed the growing tide of human territory, expanding like a dark stain across the Orion Arm. Admiral Tarek, commander of the Council's Second Armada, spoke first. His scaled face was grim. If we allow them to keep this pace, they will control the rim in less than a cycle. We must strike them now, before they consolidate. Speaker Chirix slammed his claw against the dais. We have already tried, Admiral. At Zera, 600 ships were destroyed. Do you propose to throw another fleet into the fire? But Tarek did not back down. His voice was steady, even cold. Yes. But this time, we will not face them blindly. We have studied their weapons, their formations. We will adapt. We will fight as they fight. It is the only way. Reluctantly, the chamber agreed. A massive fleet, nearly 1,000 strong, was assembled at the frontier system of Kaler, where human forces were expected to strike next. This was to be the Council's line in the sand, their desperate chance to prove that humanity could bleed. The trap was set. Yet the humans were already watching. On the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno studied her displays with calm eyes. Her intelligence officers had intercepted the Council's plans before they were even finalized. Every Council fleet movement, every hidden deployment, was known. The humans had spies, informants, perhaps even allies among the Council itself. Her second-in-command, Captain Reese, frowned. They're gathering everything at Kaler. They expect us to strike. Juno gave a thin smile. Then we will give them what they want. But not how they expect it. When the humans arrived in Kaler, the Council was ready. 1,000 ships filled the void, weapons armed, shields charged. It was the largest fleet assembled in centuries, a force meant to crush the human threat in one decisive battle. The first shots came from the Council side. Waves of plasma fire streaked across the stars, a brilliant storm of destruction. But when the blasts cleared, the human fleet was still advancing. And then, something new happened. From the shadows of the void, human ships appeared that had not been seen before. They were larger, darker, their hulls marked not with the crest of Earth, but with strange symbols, ancient, almost ritualistic. The Council's sensors screamed warnings. These ships carried weapons unlike anything in their databases. Energy readings spiked beyond known limits. Then the dark human vessels fired. Entire Council cruisers vanished in silence, as though erased from existence. No explosion, no wreckage, just nothingness. Panic ripped through the Council fleet. Admirals shouted orders, ships scattered, but the new human weapons cut through them without pause. Admiral Tarek's command ship shook violently as one of the beams grazed its shields. His crew cried out, terrified. He realized with horror what these weapons were. They're not destroying us, he whispered. They're unraveling us. In less than an hour, the battle was over. The great Council fleet, their line in the sand, had been broken as if it were nothing. Back aboard Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno stood silently, her eyes on the battlefield. The Kaler system was theirs. Her officers awaited her orders, but she spoke only one sentence. Activate the archives. It is time they remember what they did to us. The humans had unleashed their hidden strength. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand the terrible truth. Humanity had not just survived exile. They had learned to master the dark. The Kaler system burned. What had been the Council's greatest show of strength ended as their greatest defeat. Out of nearly 1,000 ships, barely 200 limped away, their survivors whispering of weapons that erased matter itself. The Council had lost not just a battle, but the illusion that humanity could be resisted. And yet, worse than the defeat was what followed. From the human flagship Eternal Resolve, a transmission went out, not just to the Council but across the galaxy. It was not a demand. It was not a threat. It was history. Every screen, every comms relay, every holoprojector lit up with ancient images. Records the Council had buried. Archives long erased from public knowledge. The galaxy watched in silence as the truth unfolded. It began with images of Earth, verdant, alive, its cities glowing with light. Humanity was not shown as a monster, but as a builder, an explorer, a species of dreamers who reached the stars faster than anyone before them. Their colonies spread, their trade routes thrived. And then came the betrayal. The transmission showed fleets of alien ships, Serati, Thalorian, Valen, and more, descending upon human worlds. Flames and devastation followed. Cities were bombarded, colonies reduced to ash. Civilians fled, hunted by warships that had sworn to be allies. The Council had declared humanity too dangerous, too ambitious, too unpredictable to be allowed to grow. The Council had chosen extermination. But they had failed. The next images froze every heart watching. Children huddled in the ruins of colonies. Families slaughtered. Entire fleets sacrificing themselves to buy time for the last survivors to flee into the void. The galaxy had called it the silence of humanity, a mystery left unexplained. Now they knew the truth. It had been genocide. Admiral Juno's voice cut through the transmission, calm and cold. We were not lost. We were hunted. You tried to erase us. But in the darkness, we endured. You buried our name. Now we will carve it back into the stars. The reaction was immediate. On Council worlds, riots broke out as citizens demanded answers. Why were we never told? They shouted. Species that had believed the Council was a shield now questioned its rule. Colonies on the edge, already half abandoned, began sending messages to the humans. Pledges of loyalty, offers of alliance, pleas for protection. And through it all, the humans moved with terrifying precision. They did not just conquer. They liberated. Worlds abandoned by the Council were brought into the human fold. Infrastructure was rebuilt in days, supply chains restored, defenses erected. The people who had lived under the Council's neglect suddenly saw order, food, protection, and they swore allegiance willingly. The Council's nightmare had doubled. Not only were humans stronger militarily, but they were winning the war of loyalty. Systems were joining them not out of fear, but out of choice. Inside the Council chambers, the mood was despair. Some demanded peace. Others demanded total war. But Admiral Tarek, scarred from Kaler, stood and spoke what many feared to say. They do not want peace. They do not want war. They want justice. And we cannot give it. Meanwhile, in the depths of human space, new fleets stirred. Not only warships, but massive construction vessels, colony ships, and transport convoys. Humanity was not waging a campaign of raids, they were rebuilding an empire, one world at a time. On the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno received word of yet another frontier colony pledging loyalty. She allowed herself the faintest of smiles. They tried to erase us, she said softly. Now they will erase themselves. The galaxy had demanded to know why humanity had vanished. Now they knew. And the knowledge was more terrifying than the silence had ever been. Because it meant the humans would not stop. They could not stop. The oath forged in exile burned too deeply. And for the first time, the Council began to realize the true scale of the storm they had unleashed. The Council was crumbling. Not in its palaces or grand chambers, but out in the stars where power truly lived. Worlds once loyal to the Council were breaking away, one after another, throwing down their banners and raising the crest of Earth. It began with the Rim colonies. These were the forgotten worlds, left underdefended for centuries, taxed heavily but given little in return. When the humans arrived, they did not meet resistance. They met cheers. And then the defections spread. Whole planetary governors sent messages in secret to Admiral Juno: "We will serve humanity. Protect us, and we are yours." Smugglers turned into supply runners for the human fleet. Mercenary groups abandoned council contracts and fought under human colors. The humans were not just conquering, they were winning hearts. Inside the council's high chamber, Speaker Chirix's voice rose above the chaos. "We are losing not by battle, but by loyalty. Our citizens no longer believe in us. They believe in them." Admiral Tarek, scarred and weary from the disaster at Kalar, slammed his fists onto the table. "Because the humans give what we denied: order, protection, hope. They are showing themselves as rulers, not raiders." The chamber erupted in shouting. Some demanded immediate surrender before everything was lost. Others screamed for genocide, for the complete annihilation of humanity before their influence spread further. At last, the speaker called for silence. His voice was heavy with dread. "There is only one path left to us. We must do what we swore never to do. We must awaken the Titan Protocol." Gasps filled the chamber. The Titan Protocol was legend, a buried weapon of the Council, so dangerous it had been sealed away for millennia. No one alive had ever seen it. No one wanted to. Admiral Tarek's eyes widened in horror. "If we unleash that, there will be no galaxy left to rule. We will burn everything, our people included." But desperation won over fear. The vote was taken, and by a narrow margin, the Council chose the unthinkable. The Titan Protocol would be activated. Far away, aboard the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno felt the shift before her intelligence officers confirmed it. Council fleets were moving in strange patterns, abandoning some sectors, fortifying others. Something was wrong. Something bigger than a simple counterattack. Her second-in-command, Captain Reese, frowned at the reports. "They're pulling back too much. It's not retreat, it's preparation. They're gathering around the Let-Har expanse." Juno's eyes narrowed. "Then that is where their secret lies." The Let-Har expanse was a forbidden region of space, long sealed and marked on maps only with warnings: restricted. Do not enter. Even smugglers avoided it. Now, the Council was pouring fleets into it, as if guarding something ancient and terrible. Admiral Juno understood at once. They are calling upon weapons buried for ages. Desperation drives them. Captain Reese's voice dropped. "Can we face it?" Juno's reply was cold and certain. "If we cannot, then we should never have returned." While the Council prepared its forbidden weapon, rebellion burned brighter across its core. On the Thalorian homeworld, riots shook the streets. Citizens shouted in unison, "The Council betrayed humanity. What else have they hidden?" On Serati colonies, military officers broke ranks, openly refusing to fight the humans. They declared independence, swearing fealty to Earth instead. And in countless smaller systems, the banners of the Council fell without a single shot fired. Humanity did not need to conquer them, those worlds came willingly. Admiral Juno's fleet swelled with defectors. Every ship that joined brought supplies, soldiers, and secrets. The Council's power was bleeding away like water through broken glass. But still, the humans advanced. They would not stop until the Council itself fell. In the silence of her command chamber, Admiral Juno whispered to herself, her eyes fixed on the growing front lines. "They think a weapon from the past can save them. But we are the past they buried. And we are stronger than their nightmares." The Council was preparing to unleash something catastrophic. Humanity was preparing to crush it. The galaxy stood on the edge of a storm unlike any it had ever seen. The Let-Har expanse glowed red with storms of plasma and shattered asteroids. For centuries, no one had dared to cross it. Now, the Council's greatest fleets gathered there, standing guard around something long hidden, something so old, even their own records had blurred into myth. The Titan Protocol. Admiral Tarek stood on the command bridge of the Council's dreadnought Oathkeeper. His scales itched with unease as he watched the colossal structure rise from the shadows of a dead moon. It was not a ship. It was a machine, ancient, incomprehensible, its size dwarfing entire fleets. Miles of black metal stretched into the void, covered with weapons that had not fired in millennia. It pulsed with energy older than the Council itself. This, Tarek muttered, was never meant to be used. But Speaker Chirix's voice cut through the comms, shrill with desperation. Activate it. Humanity must be erased before their shadow consumes us all. And so the Titan woke. Its first strike split the void. A single blast of raw energy cut through space itself, tearing a human forward fleet into vapor. Thousands of lives gone in an instant. The galaxy trembled. The message was clear: humanity might have returned, but the Council still had gods buried in their vaults. On the Eternal Resolve, alarms screamed as the first reports of the Titan reached Admiral Juno. The holomap lit up with warnings, entire fleets erased in moments. Her officers were shaken. Even hardened veterans stared in silence at the impossible energy readings. Captain Reese whispered, "Admiral, nothing can withstand that." But Juno did not flinch. Her eyes narrowed, her voice calm. "You are wrong. There is one thing that can." The bridge turned toward her, confused. Juno raised her hand and brought up a hidden file. The symbol on it was not the crest of Earth, nor any banner of the human fleet. It was older, darker, a mark none of her crew had ever seen. "Long ago," she said quietly, "our ancestors discovered something in exile. A weapon older than even the Council's secrets. We have carried it with us, waiting for this moment." Her words sent a chill through the crew. "Summon the Leviathan." From the depths of the void, a shadow stirred. At first, it looked like a ship. Then its true scale became clear. Larger than moons, darker than any night, the Leviathan emerged, an ancient human construct, built in silence during centuries of exile. Its hull was forged from metals unknown, its surface alive with glowing veins of white fire. Where the Titan was a relic of the Council's arrogance, the Leviathan was the embodiment of humanity's vengeance. Across the galaxy, as feeds from the battle spread, every species held its breath. The Titan fired again. A beam of annihilation tore through space, straight toward the human fleet. But this time, the Leviathan moved. A shield of burning light flared from its surface, bending the energy, swallowing it whole. The impossible had happened, the weapon of gods had been denied. Then the Leviathan answered. Its weapons were not beams, not missiles, not plasma. They were storms. Space itself rippled as gravity twisted, tearing apart entire Council squadrons. Waves of energy pulsed outward, disabling ships without touching them. The Titan shuddered as the Leviathan struck, not with destruction, but with domination. The humans had not built this to fight a war. They had built it to end one. On the Oathkeeper, Admiral Tarek watched in horror as the Titan's power failed to break humanity's vengeance. His claws tightened on the railing. "We buried them," he whispered. "And they returned stronger. We awakened a monster, but they became gods." The Council fleet broke. Ships scattered, commanders fled, entire species abandoned the cause. Fear turned to despair. No one believed they could stand against humanity now. Admiral Juno's voice echoed across every comms channel in the system. Her words were not shouted, but they carried more weight than any weapon. "You tried to erase us. You failed. You unleashed your Titan. We answered with our Leviathan. We are not prey. We are not forgotten. We are the first and the last. And we are home." Silence followed. Then, slowly, across countless systems, banners fell. The Council collapsed not with fire, but with surrender. The war was over. Humanity had not just returned, they had conquered. And yet, aboard the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Juno stood at the viewport, staring at the vastness of space. Victory was theirs, but her expression was hard. We have reclaimed what was ours, she murmured. But the stars are wide, and shadows still remain. If they buried the Titan, what else did they hide? The galaxy belonged to humanity once more. But the story was far from over. Because some ghosts never stay buried.